You're listening to The Dating Den with dating and relationship badass and best-selling author Marni Batista. Every week, you'll get the raw truth from top experts and real people on the important dating, sex, and relationship issues you want to know about. So if you're ready for true talk that's authentic and unfiltered, and you're not afraid to be called out on your stuff, then you're ready for what's next.
The Dating Den with Annie Daly. Global secrets to help you become rejection-proof wherever you live. Ladies, welcome your asses into the Dating Den today. It is you're going to make fun of me if you live anywhere that's not California. It's a cold day here in California. It's windy, the fire's blazing, the cat's on my lap. And I have a pretty cool chick in here with me today in the Dating Den. Annie Daly is a fourth-generation journalist, which I did not know about you. She is based in New York City. I met her when she was writing dating and relationship stories. She interviewed me. She's written about travel and wellness for self. She's written for Travel and Leisure, my favorite magazine, Conde Nast Traveler, Afar. She was also the travel editor at Buzzfeed. So maybe if you admit that you've been on Snapchat or whatever, you see her stuff. She was also the editor at Yahoo Travel, Cosmo, and Good Housekeeping. And she wrote a book, and it's so super cool and impressive, and it's called Destination Wellness. I'm so happy that you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very pumped to be here.
So you and I were chatting a little bit before we hit the record button, but so you were single and you were writing about love and then you met your husband. I always have to ask, did you meet him online? Did you meet him in real life?
I actually did not meet him online. I met him in real life. We met on a camping trip, which is pretty wild. Yeah. It was actually ironic because I went on the camping trip with my two best girlfriends specifically to escape men because we were all having just various issues, and we made it a girls' trip. And then he was super cute, and he was staying at the campsite right next to ours, and we started chatting, and we invited them over to our campsite to hang out by the fire, and we just hit it off. And it turns out that we both lived in New York. And so when we got back to the city, we started dating right away, and the rest was history.
I love it that the city people met like out in nature.
Yeah, it was in the Catskills. It was like, but the thing is, it was far away. I mean, it was 4 hours from the city. So it could have been that we didn't both live in New York. So it was very fateful.
Oh my God, the Catskills, like Dirty Dancing.
Totally.
Oh my God.
And what's the other one? Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Yes. Oh my God. I love it. So I want to hear your story because, you know, you say you got married. Had you written your book proposal? Like, had you known that you wanted to write about travel and wellness? Like what inspired this whole deep dive for you in writing the book?
Well, what inspired me to write it was the job that I was in. I was working as an editor at a wellness magazine. And at that job, I was just absolutely inundated with wellness products and the entire commercialization of the industry. And to be honest, I kind of got fed up with it all during that job. And I had always been a traveler. And so I knew that there were other ways of living around the world that weren't so commercialized. And that's where I got the idea to write the book, is from that job.
That's amazing. I think this is so interesting. So I happen to have a daughter in college, and she just wrote an entire paper about, which I just had to read, about how the commercialization of wellness, especially for women, and the way we're sort of provoked in interacting with wellness in social media, online, Instagram, it has become this sort of like aspirational thing that can get so caught up in consumerism and comparison and so many other things. So when you got fed up, what was the turning point? Did you have a moment like when you got like that last product and you were like, why do you think this is the thing that's going to make me happy? Or what was the moment?
Well, it wasn't so much a moment as it was a buildup of months and months and months of feeling fed up with the commercialization of it all.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I decided to start trying to write the book when I went freelance. And I realized that I thought that I had the skills and the ability to be able to go around the world and interview people in various cultures and countries and places that are not so commercialized when it comes to wellness and ask people what they think of well-being and pull it all together into a book. And I thought that I had the ability to do that.
So I love this idea. Like when I was going before COVID, I'd gone to Uganda for like 5 years, doing some philanthropy work. And I was like, these people totally know about like well-being in so many different ways. So when you look at this idea of sort of well-being and wellness, like what does that mean in different cultures, and what can we learn about how we create that for ourselves in our lives here?
That is a great question. And that's ultimately the premise of my book. And so, just to give listeners a brief overview of what I did, I ended up going to 6 different places around the world, and each chapter is a different place. And I focus on a wellness and lifestyle philosophy in each place in the chapters. So, the places that I went were Jamaica, Norway, Hawaii, Brazil, India, and Japan. And I chose to go to all of those places because they all had this beautiful and unique way of defining wellness that was so different from this commercialized idea in the US that we have to buy our way into well-being and that we can reach this level of happiness through purchasing products.
Yeah.
And, and it's like, I mean, I'm sure that your daughter really understands that from writing that paper. And by the way, you should totally give her my book.
I will. Totally.
But yeah, so I basically learned about a different definition of well-being in each place. And I mean, if you want, shall I go into all of the different places or do this?
Well, yeah, I'm curious. So it's really interesting because there's such diversity in those places. Was there one common element? Like I'm thinking Norway to India. Like to me, those are like the opposite in many different ways. Was there a common theme at all, or were they all very unique?
There was definitely a common theme. And the common theme is essentially just getting back to the basics and going and following the ways of our ancestors and relishing in these simple joys that we've gotten so far away from with all of the commercialization. And I mean, these are basic lessons like get outside. So many of the chapters had various elements that were tied to just embracing nature and Mother Earth and really getting back to our roots in that way. Another huge one was hanging out with your loved ones, just basic connection, whether that's telling stories or, just hugging them, which I really can't wait to do after COVID.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So yeah, I mean, nature, connection, eating wholesome foods, staying away from processed foods, being present, living in the moment. These are all such simple things, and yet we seem to have gotten so far away from them. And so I would say the overall theme is, yes, just bringing it back to the basics.
And I think what's crazy is, and I'd love for you to talk about what's different in different cultures. I feel like, our listeners could probably, like, they've read so much shit. They've read so many blogs, right? They could tell you, yeah, meditation, yeah, get outside. Like, they intellectually know it. Why are people in other cultures doing it? Why are they less into consuming information about it? And it's actually the way they practice or live their life.
Well, I think so much of it is that it's built into their lives a little bit more. And again, I don't want to generalize it so much, but it's the fact that in America, it's become so easy with all of this consumerism to not get outside. We can have everything delivered,
Yeah.
It's become so easy to not connect with our friends because of social media. We can do it all online. Like these are things that the developed world and also just the Western world in general, it makes it really easy for us to get away from these simple things. And I think in a lot of the cultures that I visited, it's more of a day-to-day practice that is built in and ingrained. And so it's not even necessarily about intentionally doing this thing, but it's about intentionally setting up your life so that you almost do it accidentally.
That's so interesting. One of the things when I went to Uganda that just blew my mind, I will never forget this moment. I was at this school and the water for this school, and they had, the kids were living at the school and the teachers live in the school. And the water was 5 miles away. And I was talking to this teacher and I was like, what's that like? You have to go get water. How do you integrate that? And he was like, oh, it's great. He was like, it's a 10-mile walk. We do it twice a day. He's like, and it goes fast, right? Because you're walking with your friends. Right? You're like connecting with people. You spend time walking with people and it goes fast. And he's like, and we laugh and we share stories. He's like, it's not good when you have to go alone, but we always go together. And I just thought that you're connecting, you're moving. It's really that of course you do that because you really don't have any other choices. Was there a country that you visited where you had a moment like that where you were like, holy crap, this is just so mind-blowing to me. And the joy that comes from that one thing.
Totally. As you were telling me that story, I immediately started thinking of Norway. And the reason is that the Norway chapter is about this wellness concept. It's called Friluftsliv. It's spelled Friluftsliv, pronounced Friluftsliv, and it essentially translates to the free air life. And what it means is this idea that we should be spending as much of our lives outside as humanly possible. And what I found was so different from Norwegians' outlook on spending time outside versus Americans is that we often think of outdoorsy people in America as, super, super outdoorsy and carrying their Nalgene bottles and going on these 20-mile hikes and, just backcountry camping with beards and, the whole thing and just drinking super strong IPAs in the woods with campfires. Whereas, you know what I mean? Whereas in Norway, it's much more about integrating the outdoors into your everyday life. And part of that, they have outdoor kindergartens. So they have schools outside. And this one woman I interviewed, she said that she takes a daily hike every day. But when I asked her what that daily hike was, it was just that she went to all sorts of different markets to pick up her groceries. But she considered that her hike because she intentionally didn't drive. And so throughout the culture, it's this pervasive idea that we should be spending as much time outdoors as possible. And I really loved that idea because it's so easy to apply to our own lives at home. And it's as simple as, if you can walk, maybe you shouldn't drive, maybe you should walk, but you should build that into your day, build that half an hour in so that you're not necessarily needing to proactively go out for a half an hour hike, but it's built into your day.
Do you think work from home is helping that? Because I was talking to my other daughter who's a New Yorker also, and she's reading all these things about how the commute has, because without a commute, people aren't walking, especially in New York, right? They're not walking. Yeah. They're not having that time to listen to a book or, chat with someone that they want to connect with. So do you think that work from home has made it harder to apply some of these principles that you learned about? Or do you think it's made it easier?
Well, it depends on the principle. I think with Friluftsliv, it's actually a matter of knowing that we should be walking more and intentionally building that time in. So it does a little bit go against what I just said, which is that it's more about this accidental way of going about your day. But I think with a lot of the other philosophies that I learned about, it does make it easier. I'm thinking of, in particular, Jamaica. One of the philosophies is called ITAL, and ITAL is basically eating wholesome foods and essentially trying to stay away as much as you can from non-processed foods so that you're connecting more to the earth and therefore with your higher self.
I love that.
And me too. And, being at home, it does make it easier to cook for yourself and to go out during the day and, maybe pick up a couple little fresh things here and there and come back. And we do have this extra time from not commuting. And so, yes, we do lose the time to listen to podcasts on our commute and listen to, radio shows and read books. But on the flip side, we do have more time at home to implement some of these principles.
The other thing I think is so fascinating. I mean, I love this topic. I was really thinking about in preparation for this, about this idea that we have, like, when we're on vacation, that's when we're going to, like, recover and we're going to, like, have a sense of well-being, right? People, including me, right? Like, oh, I'm going to sleep. I'm going to be able to I'm going to be exercising more. I'm going to be, like, going outside more, right? Like, whatever I feel like a vacation is. And then we're, like, recovering. And someone asked me a question and she said, what would you do? What would your well-being look like if you didn't need to recover? And I was like, mic drop. I don't even know. And it's this idea of, like, the only time we're doing these things is vacationing. And now, obviously, with COVID, vacations change. So, like, what do you recommend that someone who is thinking that well-being is something you only do on a 3-day weekend, right? Or whatever it is. How do you take what we've learned in the last year and really start to apply that so that we're not just a bunch of recovering workaholics?
That's a great question, first of all. And I think the answer gets back to what I was saying before about getting back to the basics and learning to weave these things into our daily life and looking at them as not something that is extra, but something that is necessary. And I think that's something that COVID has really taught us, is that our health, we can't ignore our health. We have to embrace our health and really go to great efforts to maintain that. And that we're so lucky to be here and having made it to the other side. And we should value that more. And so instead of looking at it as something where in our day-to-days we grind, and we're hustling and we're on the internet and we're doing 10 things at once, and all of a sudden the day goes by and we haven't done our things, I think it's more about prioritizing what we know has always kept our generations of people healthy, and we've somehow gotten away from them. And those things are very simple. It's sleep. It's connecting with your friends, even just a half an hour phone chat. It's cooking these wholesome foods, which, again, it doesn't necessarily take that much longer. It's just about prioritizing it. And getting outside, going for a walk. These are all really, really pretty basic things, but it's far too easy to not do them still.
Well, I'm thinking too, like, I know that this year I've been really focused on adding an evening, like, before I go to bed, meditation. And so I'm like planner girl. I'm type A. I totally admit it. And I'm like, so I'm writing in my planner, right? Like, I have to, like, make it part of my day, right? I have to, like, put that exercise in my day. And I realized that I went and did a little experiment. I was living in the desert for a month, and I realized that because of the weather, I wasn't sitting in the office in this place that I rented. I was just basically being outside. And I came back to LA, and while LA is lovely, it's a different vibe, right? I'm in a more urban environment. And I was like, why am I not spending time outside? And it was just like a whole narrative that I made up. So I've been like, all right, I can have this meeting on Zoom, but I don't need to be on screen, right? Like, I can be walking. Yep. This week I decided to go, I just got back. I was like, you know what? I don't live in Manhattan, but I can go walk for lunch. So I went to a little neighborhood place with my daughter and we walked and we went and got some lunch, right? Instead of just that grind, right? Like, how can I make that connection? And I want to keep these things in my life. So when you look at the mindset that one of our listeners can do, because I hear them say like, oh, I'm going to do 20 minutes on my Peloton, or I'm going to make this effort to do this. What do you think is like a good first step so that it's not another thing on your to-do list, but it's just part of being?
That's a great question. So I actually think that it's okay to have it be part of your to-do list. I'm not necessarily actually against that. Like I put 10K steps as my step goal. I put that into my to-do list most days. And that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going out all at once, like, oh, must go get my 10K steps, like see you in 2 hours.
But yeah, 10K is a lot.
Yeah, well, I try,
That's amazing.
And I really like it. I love walking. It's a great time to catch up with friends. It's a great time to listen to podcasts like yours. And so I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing to remind yourself of these little tiny moments, because you know what it does is it helps you prioritize them. And that's what we need to do, because the world has made it so easy to not do these basic things that we know have helped generations of people throughout history. And the fact that we can go in an entire day and not do these basic things, not go outside, not eat super healthfully, not connect with our friends, the fact that it's easy to do that, that's a problem. And so to me, I really don't think it's that bad to put it on your to-do list.
Okay, good. I'm glad. I thought I was doing
a walk, or or even just go into the grocery store, picking up some fresh, go to the farmer's market like that. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to remind yourself to do it. And once you start doing it for a little bit, maybe you won't have to put it on your list anymore. But to start out, go for it.
Put it on your damn list.
Yeah.
So, and let me ask you this. So I think this is another really important thing that you must have had to consider, because there you were, you got your book deal right after you were married, and you were on these adventures, really learning and traveling solo. What was it like to kind of be in the pursuit of your own dream while you were also just adjusting to being a partner?
Right. Well, I think one of the reasons, my husband, his name is Rahul, by the way, in case I mention him now in this context. One of the reasons that Rahul and I get along so well, I think, is that we both prioritize being individuals and having our own interests. And I know that you're a big proponent, Marni, of determining what your values are and looking for that shared value in someone else. And Rahul and I both prioritize and value travel and having a sense of curiosity and also being independent people. And so I think for me personally, going on this journey by myself after I got married, actually, if anything, may have strengthened my relationship, because we were able to prove to each other that we are two separate people who not only enjoy each other's company and do so well as a team, but we also do well by ourselves. And then we can bring our full selves back to our relationship when we're together, and it makes it that much stronger.
And I think this is such an interesting thing, because when I talk to women, and we have a Facebook group of women who listen to this show, and I keep talking about it because it was just so profound, but I said, what's one thing that scares the crap out of you about being in a relationship? And I think there was like 50, 60, like a ton of comments. And there were so many of like, well, I have to lose myself, right? Like I'm going to lose my own passion, or I'm going to have to take care of this person, like it was this big, like horrible responsibility. And what I hear you saying is that because you kind of had those same shared values, you were able to really rely on those almost, right? So that you guys can use that as that strong foundation so that you're still able to do what makes you feel fulfilled.
Exactly. And if anything, Rahul was super supportive of my travels. He was so pumped when I got this book deal and when I got to write this book. It's such a huge dream of mine. But I really do understand that fear though, as well, because before I got into this relationship, before I met Rahul, that was one of my fears as well. And I think that one of the reasons that we were able to work so well together as a team right from the get-go is that we found a person who is on a similar wavelength in terms of how we value our independence. And that's, by the way, not to say that we don't love hanging out together. We've been together every single day of this entire
yes, that's a whole other book, I'm sure. So one of the things that I think is really interesting is, we read a lot or listen to a lot of philosophies, right? Of like what provides happiness, right? Like the whole study of positive psychology here and things like that. And we talked about two countries. So what are some of the other sort of like overall philosophies that you discovered in your destination wellness research?
Absolutely. So we already did a brief overview of Norway and Jamaica. And so the other countries we have left are Hawaii, India, Japan, and Brazil. And the cool thing about all of those is that they all have very different and unique philosophies. And we'll start with Hawaii. So the philosophy that I looked into the most is actually aloha, which I think a lot of people know in general as the way to say hello and goodbye. But actually, when you look into aloha and you start researching it more, it turns out that there is a lot more to it than that. And aloha is actually about the connection between all human beings. And it's acknowledging that we are all connected and that there's so much love between us all. And knowing that we're all connected means that we should apply the golden rule and treat other people as we should be treated because we're all the same human. And that, I think, is a really, really beautiful philosophy. And another philosophy in Hawaii is called Nana Ike Kumu. And it basically means look to the source. And the wellness philosophy behind that is that knowing your story and knowing who you are and where you come from and understanding your roots really, really helps you cultivate a greater sense of well-being. And I particularly love that one. I found it especially useful as I was reporting this book because, as you said at the beginning, I'm a fourth-generation journalist. And so for me, when I heard that philosophy, it helped me understand that knowing that I come from a family of journalists kind of gave me the confidence to go out and do this book because I felt rooted in my core. And that is really beautiful to me.
I love that. I think that also is a really, really obvious reason why when you don't feel connected to who you are, right? Or you're trying to like kind of bury your roots or, compartmentalize it or put it away. It's really hard to be connected to your idea of well-being, right? Or really connection because you're not anchored in what's really authentically you. That's so beautiful. Was there like a story or a person that you met that really exemplified that when you were doing your research?
Well, I actually spoke with a lot of Native Hawaiians, and one of my favorite things about speaking with Native Hawaiians is that they are all super proud of their culture. And so so many Hawaiians that I interviewed mentioned this idea because it's so rooted in their culture and their way of being. And I also think that that's actually a really good philosophy to keep in mind when you're dating for this podcast and for the listeners in particular, because knowing who you are, that is the foundation of what you want to bring to a relationship. And I think it's so easy from my dating days before I got married. It was so easy to sort of, you can do your research on somebody and see what they are and sort of try to match yourself to them in the hopes that you will be a good match in that way. But if you come in and you know exactly who you are and where you come from, I think it really shows in your confidence and your well-being as a whole.
I love that. I think it's that whole idea of, this is who I am. And if we're a match, great. And if we're not, that's okay too, because, I know who I am and I know what I'm looking for, which is amazing. And also, I think, honestly, when you were talking about aloha, I was like, we should all date with aloha, right? Because there's so many people that are like, that guy was a waste of my time, or, he's such a, jerk, or I can't believe his pictures online are so crappy. There's just so much judgment. And I think when you have that spirit of aloha and you're looking at everyone's a human, who seeks and desires love, period, then you can have a lot more compassion and make more room for connection and have more fun through the dating process, for sure, if you have that spirit of aloha.
Absolutely. It's such a huge deal to say aloha to somebody in Hawaii. Like you don't say it lightly, because it's a loaded word. It means that you understand that you are connected to this person, and that it's not just a casual hello and goodbye. It's you're saying that with intention. And I love that. And I think that if so many Hawaiians I interviewed said that if the whole world adopted the spirit of aloha, then we would be in a much better place.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's kind of interesting too. Like, I went to Hawaii when LA was in like the armpit of COVID. I escaped to Hawaii. And I thought it was really interesting, just even in the messaging, right? Like, even on their signage, in the messaging just around the island, it was really that spirit of aloha, right? Like, we're all doing what we're doing because we want to get this community economically thriving again. We want to make it safe for people to be here. Everyone's doing their part. And it was really interesting. And I'm curious, like, because I understand too that Japan has sort of that same like interconnectedness. Is that a story that I'm making up, or was that kind of a philosophy that you noticed there too?
Nope, that's definitely a philosophy as well. One of the main philosophy that I focused on in Japan is actually called Ichigo Ichie, which is a little bit of a mouthful to say, but it basically means one time, one moment.
Ooh.
And I love this philosophy so much, because it's all about honoring these little moments that we have with someone in which you realize that we'll never be doing this podcast again on this day, on this year, ever again. And so let's make the most of it, and let's really go deep and find a way to connect with each other, because this is it. Even if I talk to you again tomorrow, that will be tomorrow. It's not today. And so it's really profound when you think about it in that way. Like, when you think about these little connections that we have throughout the day, and let's say your neighbor comes up to your driveway and starts talking to you, and you're in a rush, and it's so easy to just kind of like get into your car and speed off. Oh, I have this meeting to go to, blah, 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 blah. But honor that interaction and honor that moment. And when you adopt that philosophy into your daily life every day, day in and day out, it really can help foster a greater sense of connection to your world and to your surroundings.
I love that. I was watching that Frances McDormand movie over the weekend, Nomadland.
Oh yeah, I need to watch that. Well, I have not watched it yet. That's on my list.
I know. It's so interesting because it's all about like, this nomadic life, right?
Yeah.
But one of the things that she says is what you remember lives, like what you remember lives. But in her case, she kind of says, I spent so much time remembering, right, my past that I'm not living in my present. Of what was lost. And in this movie, it's like, The Departed. But I think for a lot of the people who listen to this show, like there's a lot of departed, whether it's someone you lost who left this world, or a relationship that you're grieving. I think that when we're not present, right, we're not in that moment to moment of being in the now, and we're so focused on what we lost or what we could have had, it robs us of connection. And in this particular story, she's got so many scars, right, from that holding on. And so I think what you're saying is like this philosophy in Japan is that you may have loss or you may have struggle. If you can be present in that moment, then you are making meaning of the moments that you have.
Absolutely. And I'm thinking of a way to apply this to dating as well. This is my old Cosmo background really coming into play here. But I'm thinking like how easy it is when you're on a date and it's like, you're like half an hour in and it's going well and you're already in your mind like jumping ahead to like, oh man, I hope they call me tomorrow. I hope I get a text tomorrow. And you're already thinking like, ooh, I wonder if we could maybe plan our weekend getaway. And
yes,
you're jumping ahead. And what that's doing is you're losing out on the current moment of enjoying this wonderful cocktail that you're having with a random stranger. And it's going well. And, leave it at that. Like just appreciate that lovely interaction and that lovely moment and really try to not always be jumping ahead or jumping to the past, but just enjoying the date.
I love that. Okay. This is amazing. So we are like, we're having good food. We are present in the moment. We are interconnected humans. So no date is a waste of time. What are we pulling from India?
So from India, we are pulling from honoring your individual self. And we're pulling that from an ancient philosophy called Ayurveda, which is the ancient Hindu medical system of healing. It's been around for 5,000 years.
Wow.
Which is insane.
Yeah.
And it's quite complicated to explain. People have written entire books about it, but the ultimate summary is that it's all about acting for your own specific body type, which in Ayurvedic knowledge is known as your dosha. So they believe that there are 3 different types of doshas, and all humans are parts of one of the 3. And once you know what yours is, which you can go to an Ayurvedic practitioner and they can help you figure it out, or you can take an online quiz, what is your dosha? And it's actually surprisingly accurate. And once you know what your dosha is, there are certain foods to eat to balance you out and help you maintain equilibrium. There are certain workouts that work better. There are certain ways to go about living in the world that work better for your dosha. And so what we're taking away from that is to steer away from this idea that wellness is synonymous with a product, or that there's one, it's like if you have these specific leggings, that's wellness. If you eat this particular food, that's wellness. Whatever you see on Instagram, whatever is getting sold to you, that's wellness. No, what Ayurveda is saying is that wellness looks different for everyone. It's really, really particular. And that once you know your internal making, it's a lot easier to maintain balance and choose the right foods for you, not the right foods and actions for the masses.
That's so amazing, because I think, our brain is trying to like find a quick solution. And so of course you're online or whatever it is, and you're like, oh, I'm going to do keto. Oh, I'm going to do freaking juice cleanse. I'm going to do whatever it is. And it's interesting, recovering from an eating disorder as I have for the last, 30 years ish. I always been like, those things are just like a rabbit hole I can never go down. And what I like about this is it's kind of connected back to the thing we already talked about, which is like, be who you really are, right? Like be in yourself, and stop trying to like fit into the fad and just really own and protect and nurture your own self.
Absolutely. That's exactly what it is. But I mean, if you think about just scrolling through Instagram, we're targeted, it's like we're sold all of these things that tell us that this is what wellness is. And that's just not true. Wellness is different for everyone. That's a fundamental fact. And that gets back to the idea that these are simple, basic truths that we've gone so far away from in our wellness commercialization journey,
Oh my God. I know. Did you see that movie? Okay, here's another thing. Did you see that Fake Famous documentary? I've been talking about this nonstop also.
I have not.
Oh my God, it's crazy.
Tell me about it.
Well, it's just really interesting based on what your experience was, right? They did, and they did an experiment. They cast 3 randos And they're like, we're going to make you influencers. And we're just going to buy you some followers and we're going to work the machine. And then pretty soon you're going to get approached to start selling crap, basically, of all different sorts. And it's amazing too, because they are fake famous, right? But they start getting all these products, right? And it doesn't matter, if you have straight hair and you're being offered to sell curly hair product, you're going to be like, I love this curly hair product. It's the most amazing thing ever. Men are swooning for me. And it's just not authentic. And so I think what you're saying is it's like, we can't get caught up in this ideal of who you think you're supposed to be because there's some magic pill. It's about what does your body need? What do you need? What's right for you?
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better.
Damn, don't be fake famous, people.
Yeah, that too.
I watch way too much.
Watch that, or should I not even?
No, it's literally it's 60 minutes. It's really mind blowing. I did not know how. I didn't know how fake. Like they literally put. This is crazy. I'm just going to share this because I think it's mind blowing. Okay. Y'all are going to be like, what? Okay, so like these influencers that show themselves traveling all the time. Since we're talking about travel, what they do is they take a toilet seat with the little hole in the middle and someone holds it. And then they there's a certain thing, a way you position your body and you have this certain thing in the background. And then you smile and it looks like you're drinking Cristal on a private plane. That's your That's your window.
Wow. I did not know that, which is weird because sometimes I feel like I do know quite a lot about travel influencers, but I missed the memo on that one. That's quite depressing.
It's so depressing. And that's why also during COVID, these people are no context, right? So they're out there I'm in the Maldives, I'm on the way with my Cristal. People were like, did you not get the memo? How are they? They weren't, people. They were in their backyard with a damn toilet seat from Home Depot.
Wow. Okay, now I definitely need to watch this.
They are not just, their destination is not wellness. I'm just saying right now. Okay, we talked about India, Jamaica, Hawaii, Japan, Norway, Hawaii. We talked about, what did we miss?
We missed, Brazil.
Brazil. Oh my gosh, yeah. Brazil. Okay, I'm really wanting to know.
So this is our last one, and one of my favorites, actually. And the philosophy that I focused on the most in Brazil is this idea called saudade. It's spelled Saudade. And what saudade is it's this emotional pain that comes from missing somebody you love, which sounds bad, but it's actually really great because in Brazilians' mind, experiencing saudade means that even though somebody that you love is gone, not necessarily from death, but it's literally can just be somebody moving cities. Somebody that you love is gone and you have such pain from loving them so much and not having them be around. And what this really is it speaks to the greater idea that Brazilians absolutely value community over everything else. And one of my favorite anecdotes from my reporting is that I spoke with this professor who told me something so profound, and it's really stuck with me. And he told me that the way that Brazilians see it, you cannot be well as a person, as a human, if your community is not well. And when you really think about that, that's really different from how so many of us see it in America, because we see wellness as this solo thing that we have to do. We have to get up and make the green juice and buy the thing on Instagram that tells us we're healthy and put the serum on and do the lotion and go on the run and do all of that stuff. But we often forget to factor community into the equation. And what these Brazilians that I interview, they're just absolutely not. You can't if you're doing all those things and your community is not well around you, you're not well either, because this is a group effort. And, I love that.
I think I think it's really been so apparent in the pandemic where people felt like they're not able to connect with their communities, right?
Yeah.
And they really do feel solo. I also think it's really interesting that here, when I hear you talk about that, I'm like, well, here people are competing freaking against each other, right? They're like, oh my God, I've been in it, and it's just it's so guarded and armored, and it's not, if you look back in history, I mean, I'm sure you did so much research on this, like about how tribes and communities, originally were, right? It was like you had to rely on each other. Everyone had to like make sure that the goat farmer and the corn farmer and the wheat farmer, that everyone was thriving so that everyone could eat, right?
Absolutely. That's exactly what it is. And we've gotten so individualized as a society, but when you look back in history, exactly what you just said, we were able to thrive because everybody had their role and we all helped out. And we've just moved so far away from that. So I think that's a really important lesson that we all learned during COVID in particular, and one that hopefully we can carry with us post-vaccine.
Be in community. So here's something funny. I wish I would have read your book like a month ago, because I did an around the world outdoor dinner party for like my 9 bubble friends.
Oh my gosh.
It was so fun, but we each brought food from a different country. But guess what? One of my goals is to do a dinner party once a month outdoors. I was like, fuck COVID. Like, I'm eating with 9 people.
I love that.
I'm having a party.
You're outdoors.
Yeah, outdoors. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a destination wellness theme party, and I'm going to have everyone pick a country and like pick something to share. We'll have something around like that philosophy. And then we'll create community, and we'll talk about things that are really important and meaningful, and we'll still be able to travel.
I love this. And
right?
Maybe you can Zoom me in.
I'll totally Zoom you in. We'll be like, and our guest speaker today, because I think it's really, so I want to kind of tie this together. I think that, and this is why when I got your email and I found out you wrote this book, I was just like, okay, she has to come on the show. I think so many of our listeners are like, you fill your life with travel sometimes as a way to have experiences that can fill you up when you didn't have love. And one of my clients ended up saying when she was 6 years old, and she was like, I'm on a girls trip, and if I go on one more damn girls trip, I'm going to shoot myself. Like, I want to be in love. I want to travel the world with a partner. And then COVID hits and everyone's like, shit, I can't travel. Now I'm left with myself. And a lot of you who are listening have reprioritized. And I think that this is like really the core of why we love to travel is what we learn from the cultures. And I just think that what you're doing in this book is you're saying we might not be able to go places right now, but we can still be immersed in that value that we get from seeing other cultures and seeing the simplicity in so many ways that we want to bring into our own life.
Absolutely. And I think one word that sums it all up is curiosity.
Yeah.
And we can have a sense of curiosity wherever we are. We don't need to travel to have one. You can have one at home and get that travel vibe when you're, at home, and you can go out and try a different type of food. You can read a different type of book. You can watch a TV show that brings you to another place. There are so many ways to learn about the world, even when we're not able to go and actually plant ourselves in those locations. So yeah, I think that it's just about having that curiosity outlook and remembering that the sense of learning never goes away, and we just can continue to learn throughout our entire lives.
Well, yeah. And you'll all need to read this book, because these are like basically, I think if you were going to say, when people are in their pain and they're like, what did I learn from the pandemic? I feel like these principles that you're talking about from each country are like the nuggets that I want all of our listeners. And I think everyone needs to remember the things that are important. And I just am really hoping that all of that sticks. So I appreciate that you got to get this in before the pandemic grounded you.
Honestly, I came back from Jamaica, which was my last trip, seriously, just a few weeks before lockdown. It was insane because I spent so much of 29 traveling, and then all of a sudden I was completely still. It was just absolute whiplash.
Damn. And then you wrote your book. Did you write the book in 2020, or did you have it mostly done before?
So I wrote the book at the end of 2020, but then I did all of the editing during lockdown. And that was, I was wondering at first, like, how will it be to edit this book about travel when I'm just sitting in one place, like butt and chair, you know? And it turns out that that's when I learned that how beautiful it was to be able to apply all of these global lessons and philosophies to my life at home.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Ladies, I love this. Get the book. The link is in the show notes. I am so grateful that I randomly met you somehow so long ago talking about dating.
Me too.
And I'm excited to have my my Destination Wellness theme party. I will totally Zoom you in. Ladies, pick a country and do it for a day. And while you're doing it, have some damn dignity. We'll see you next time on the show. Bye-bye. Hey, thanks for tuning into today's show. So if being in an intimate relationship in which you feel 100% seen, heard, and accepted by a high caliber man is a priority for you right now, and you're interested in seeing if you're a fit for working with me and my team at Dating with Dignity, here's what I want you to do. Just head over to DWD VIP, that's D as in dating, W, D as in dating, VIP.com, and book a call to speak with my team. We'll get on the phone with you for about 60 minutes and you'll get crystal clear on what's stopping you from finding true love right now. We'll also take a look at what you want to create, what you want your whole life to look like when you're able to finally be fully expressed as a woman in a healthy relationship with an incredible guy. And if we can help you get from where you are right now to where you want to be, we will show you the fastest path possible that makes sense for you to do that. We help smart, successful women all over the world solve this one missing piece in their life so they can finally have it all. So to see if we can help you do the same thing, head over to DWDVIP.com. I'm Marni Batista, and let's talk soon.